The name's Bond.
The second release in EA's original trilogy of 007 video games made outside of any attempt to adapt a previous Bond tale, Nightfire is often regarded as one of, if not the absolute best of any Bond game to ever release. Taking the best of all its predecessors and bringing with that its own unique ideas and mechanics, Nightfire kinda had it all. Guns, gadgets, girls, action, drama, stealth, incredible set pieces, stellar level design, car sections, rail sections, and even a GBA port. We'll get to that. Although, unlike the last game, this one does feature Pierce Brosnan as the face of Bond once again, but it is technically a direct sequel to Agent Under Fire. Well, as much of a sequel as Tomorrow Never Dies was to GoldenEye, in that it's supposed to be the same version of Bond, and the events of the prior entry did happen in this one, but they don't really have anything to do with one another.
They'll print anything these days.
CIA operative Zoe Nightshade from Agent Under Fire appears in a couple of the early levels as the kind of Felix Leiter, Jack Wade type character for this series, but her inclusion isn't really pivotal to the game or anything, and there is also a minor reference to Malprave Industries in one of the later missions too. So it is a sequel, and it's also the second entry in what a lot of people refer to as EA's 007 trilogy consisting of Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing, which we'll be getting to soon enough. For the most part, however, Nightfire is still entirely its own story start to finish, and I personally consider it to be on the same level as a lot of the films in terms of its quality and concept. Brand new exotic locations to sneak and fight through, villains to face off against, and sequences to experience. There's really no other way to put it. Nightfire was simply on another level.
All the more reason to investigate.
Development on Nightfire actually began quietly around the end of the year at GoldenEye 2000, while Agent Under Fire was still wrapping up its own development cycle. At that point, the project didn't even have a real identity yet, and was just intended as a pursuit of what the next Bond video game might look like. When EA made the initial announcement in 2001 that a new 007 game was being worked on, it was described only as another James Bond title. One more entry in a long-running licensed lineage. The name Nightfire wouldn't even appear until mid-2002, but until then, the team would utilize an earlier working title, Phoenix Rising. A title I would not have been disappointed with had it been kept, but I do still think Nightfire is better. It's just way more iconic. The production of this ambitious new 007 game was once again split up between 3 studios, similar to how EA handled their adaptations of The World Is Not Enough. To that end, Eurocom was invited back following their stellar work on the Nintendo 64 version of The World Is Not Enough, and handed the reins to develop all 3 of the major console versions of Nightfire, along with shaping the cinematic missions and set pieces that most players now associate with the game. All of the groundwork they'd laid could now be built upon into something far bigger than anything they'd previously attempted. The vehicle sequences they dreamed of could now become a reality, and the scope and scale could expand far beyond the likes of anything the N64 could have handled. For all intents and purposes, this was the definitive version of the game. Although Agent Under Fire was originally planned to launch with a PC port earlier in development, this never happened, but that was going to be rectified this time around, with EA ensuring that Nightfire would receive a PC iteration not via porting the console version, but by licensing the title to Gearbox Software to just make an entirely new game based on the story and framing of Eurocom's version of the game. I have absolutely no idea why they chose to do this. I mean, how difficult could it have been to just develop the console version with being ported to the PC later in mind? I really don't get it. While Eurocom's Nightfire was being developed on proprietary software, Gearbox opted to just build their version of the game on Valve's Gold Source engine, and then just modify it to support updated lighting, animations, and multiplayer features. And I can attest to that being the case, because to be real with you, and I'll be bringing this up again a lot later, playing through the PC version of Nightfire feels an awful lot like playing a total conversion mod of Half-Life turned into a Bond game. Because this was the route they had opted to take, certain missions, especially the driving sequences developed by Savage Entertainment and an internal EA team, were built for console hardware and never made it to the PC version. So instead, the PC release leaned into its strengths: more open-ended level design, tighter FPS controls, a longer campaign, and a focus on competitive multiplayer. Meanwhile, there was also a version of the game being developed for mobile hardware in the form of a Game Boy Advance iteration handled by JV Games. And it's shockingly impressive. Maybe not good, but impressive. It's probably one of the only times I've seen a GBA version of a game be so similar to its console counterpart. Exceedingly ambitious, I'll say that. It's even kind of revolutionary as the first GBA game to utilize a fully 3D game engine, which kind of blew me away when I was first starting to play it. Even the music is about as close to one-to-one as I think you could reasonably get.
Nothing's as it seems on the surface.
And so, 007 Nightfire marks EA's second attempt at releasing a multifaceted Hydra title of one game in various forms. They started with The World Is Not Enough, receiving 3 different games by 3 different developers, 2 major, 1 mobile. And now they've continued this idea with Nightfire, once again seeing 2 totally different primary versions, one for consoles and one for PC, and then 1 mobile iteration for the Game Boy Advance. The pursuit of bringing the ultimate Bond game to life didn't stop there though, as the devs decided that since they were developing their own unique Bond story to base their game off of, then a proper Bond narrative needs a proper Bond title sequence to go along with it. And how can we have a 007 title sequence without an original theme song? From Goldfinger to Skyfall, Bond stories have been known for their unique theme songs that embody the spirit of the film they belong to. The responsibility of such a theme is heavy. It has to be punchy, powerful, suave, and synchronize the viewer with the themes of the film both musically and narratively. Which is why it turned out to be the right move when EA commissioned their original theme song, Nearly Civilized. Performed by Canadian-born pop singer S. Thoreau, marking the very first time a Bond game had an exclusive vocal track. The instrumental for Nearly Civilized itself was composed primarily by Jeff Timochuk and reinforced the tone of the Brosnan Bond era, sleek, cold, and slightly futuristic in the way early 2000s spy fiction often was. And speaking of Brosnan, the studio were intent on filling a gap left open by their predecessors in Agent Under Fire, and to further anchor the game in the Brosnan era, EA brought Pierce Brosnan himself in for a digital head scan to once again embody the in-game persona of James Bond in Nightfire. Early laser capture technology recreated his likeness with impressive fidelity for its time, though his performance in the game came from voice actor Maxwell Caulfield. The rest of the cast rounded out the familiar Bond formula, Michael Ensign as industrialist Raphael Drake, Jean Morey stepping in as Zoe Nightshade, and Kimberly Davies as Alora McCall, a new agent introduced specifically for this narrative. Although Brosnan was the only familiar face from the films to show up for this one, as both M and Q do not resemble their big screen counterparts, and are instead treated as original interpretations of their characters. The character of R has finally been retired at this point, with Agent Under Fire marking his last appearance, and the title of Q being restored to the head of Q branch for this Bond outing. And with their multi-platform plan in place, and a powerful high-potential plot for the newest 007 adventure ready to go, the console versions of Nightfire launched in November of 2002, right alongside the theater release of what would be the final Brosnan Bond film, Die Another Day. The PC version arrived a week or so later, and the GBA version ended up dropping roughly 3 months after that, in late March of 2003, with a port to the Mac eventually releasing over a year later in June of 2004. Despite its fragmented development and differing platforms, Nightfire arrived as a cohesive moment in time. One of the last instances when the James Bond license felt synchronized with the broader cultural presence of the character, and it certainly made its mark. So what's the story of this unique and original Bond video game narrative? Agent Under Fire introduced us to a relatively over-the-top plot about cloning world leaders and world domination with all of the camp of a Moore-era Bond film. Well, Nightfire dials things up quite a bit by introducing a more fleshed-out plot, more involved characters, and a more plausible but equally villainous master plan for, you guessed it, world domination.
Nothing can stop Operation Nightfire.
But really quickly before we get into all of that, I'd like to take a minute to ask that if you're enjoying the video so far, you consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and of course leaving a comment with your own thoughts on these games. These 3 things matter so much in helping this channel survive in the YouTube algorithm, which feels like a constant uphill fight these days. Also, if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on the Bond films that go along with the games, you should consider becoming either a channel member or signing up over on my Patreon, where you'll have access to my film reviews of the Bond movies. I've just wrapped up with the Brosnan era films as of this video, with reviews of GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and now Die Another Day. So if you're wanting more Bond content from me with other exclusive content like book reviews and production reports and so on, you'll find all relevant links in the description below. Anyway, that's my tidbit, so let's get back to Bond. Something really interesting that Nightfire does is carry over the idea of having a pre-title sequence, just like most of the movies tend to, opening on a spectacle set-piece prelude to lead the player in before ever even showing us the title.
I need to get down there. Q, how much longer?
Patience 007.
The streets of Paris lay before us. Bond hangs from a helicopter as he watches a red car bolting between traffic while bullets fly past her head. This woman is being pursued, and clearly Bond is here to extract her, which puts us in his shoes as we're given a bolt-action sniper rifle to start taking out her attackers. Now, I did play this level both via PS2 emulation and Xbox emulation to see which one I preferred, and the PS2 emulator is really just so much further along in how much it will let you polish up these old titles, so I ended up going with the PS2 emulator for the majority of the game's footage. But that is why some of the footage in this mission will look different to those of you viewing. The very first time you play the level, it auto-aims for you, so you can't really miss your shots, but if you replay this level afterwards, you're expected to actually make them. After fending off the attackers long enough for Bond to get in closer, Q auto-drives Bond's car for this game, the Aston Martin V12 Vanquish, as seen also in Die Another Day, to extract both the French intelligence agent and Bond. Honestly, this whole cutscene is exceptionally well made. The cinematics in this game are quite genuinely among the very best of any cutscene you'll find on 6th generation hardware.
The stolen device is in that truck. If we hurry, we can still catch it. By the way, who are you?
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Which brings us to the first of 3 driving sequences we'll get to play in Nightfire, and although it's really more of a taste tester than a real mission, it's still exceedingly fun and action-packed.
Up ahead!
Q-Wedge online.
It's also really short. I mean, less than 2 minutes I'm pretty sure, but for a prelude sequence, it's still really cool. It's got a little bit of everything. We get to use our turbo boost to jump a bridge, drive through a few Paris streets, and although it's super linear, it's still fun. And once the truck is hit with an EMP blast, we see the city has been saved from a bomb that had been on board, and watch as Bond enjoys his New Year's Eve champagne with the French agent Dominique. And then the game's title sequence plays out with the aforementioned nearly civilized licensed track we previously discussed. Now, something to note about this prelude level is that it's exclusive to the console versions of Nightfire, those being the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube copies. So you won't be seeing anything even resembling this sequence in the PC or GBA versions, and while that's fine for the GBA version because obvious reasons, the lack of something akin to this in the PC version does impact the flow of the story because it introduces the character of Dominique to Bond and establishes their prior relationship. Since her character plays a role in the main game's narrative, this does actually matter. Moving on, however, we're going to stick to the PS2 version for the time being and follow it straight into the first real mission of the game called The Exchange. A cutscene plays out in the form of a debriefing from M on Bond's next mission. It seems that a redesigned piece of missile guidance hardware intended for the orbiting US space weapons platform has been stolen. The concern is that if this device falls into the wrong hands, it could be reverse engineered, compromising the entirety of the platform's global defense capabilities. Our only lead currently is that the theft may have been paid for by the philanthropic green industrialist named Raphael Drake, a man who's made his fame and fortune through his company, Phoenix International, buying and completely decommissioning and dismantling nuclear weaponry and reactors. An agent who recently infiltrated Drake's company claims that he believes the device will be handed off by one of Drake's executives named Alexander Mayhew at a castle in Austria where Drake is hosting a party. Our job is to halo jump outside of the castle, sneak our way into the party, and find that device.
As a double O agent, you may have to answer aggression with aggression. Good luck, Bond.
Which brings us to the first real level of the game, and one of the best opening missions of any game ever, in my opinion. Let me put it like this. I'm a complete sucker for levels that give you multiple ways to complete them, and this sequence is kind of famous for being completable in like 5 or 6 different ways. Not all of the missions are like this. In fact, I'd say most of them aren't. but this one is, and so of course I'm going to go over all of the ways I know of to break in. The first one is the easiest. As this truck passes under the guard tower we landed on, Bond can jump down into it and ride straight through the walls without anyone knowing. And would you just look at that trigger discipline in a PS2 game from 2002, it's just so good. This was way back in the day when video game developers actually learned how firearms worked before making a game with them in it. So that's the easy way to enter the castle, and doing so gets you a Bond move token, bringing that back from Agent Under Fire, which is cool. If you choose to go this route, the next part of this mission will open up inside of the castle courtyard by a wine cellar entrance where the truck stops. From here, we can begin to make our way stealthily through the rather large castle courtyard, which is a great way to go about it all, but what if we don't enter by riding in on the truck? Let's take it back to where we landed outside of the castle, and instead of jumping in the truck, we'll head down these stairs, take out this guard, and slide down the side of this hill. Doing this will cause you to take some damage, but there's a body armor down here to replenish you if you go this way. Alternatively, if you're a bit more vigilant, you'll notice this long stretch of hill to the right of the tower where you land that takes you smoothly down into the valley without taking any damage at all, which is of course better than falling. But okay, now we're stuck down here. How are we supposed to get back up? Well, the grapple makes a comeback this time in the form of a cell phone Bond can use to pull himself up to the side of the castle. But before we progress from here, let's go back to the beginning one more time. If you choose to take a more aggro approach and employ your license to kill by taking out the guards between you and the castle entrance, you can make your way to the gate and then trigger a cutscene where Bond scales along this ridge, taking us right back to the side of the castle where we'd be if we had grappled over here. This is important because it introduces the player to a unique mechanic where the game switches to a third-person view while Bond performs certain actions. There's actually not as many of these in the game as you might expect, but there's enough of them to make it noteworthy because it is cool, and there's 2 more of them here if you choose to enter the castle this way. Like how we see Bond traverse this rope and then scale past these windows without being spotted by the guards. I honestly really liked the third-person swaps here. They felt natural and worked well. Other games would later implement similar functionalities far more in depth, like the last 2 Deus Ex games for instance, but this was a really cool version of that idea back in 2002. Just watch your step. Scaling the side of the castle like this was such a cool idea. I love that it's technically optional, like you can play the whole game and never see any of this. Finding a door into the castle, we move back into the courtyard area once again, only this time we enter from a totally different location on the other side from where the wine cellar is that we end up if we ride in on the truck. The second part of the level is a bit shorter. If you want to just play straight through it, you can, but the stealth in this game actually functions, so I'm glad to say that finally, if you want to play some 007 stealth, you actually can here. It's pretty hard though, and you can only really do this if you kill everyone as fast as possible with headshots normally, but I mean, the level has been laid out by pros to be fun.
I'd give that dive a 3, actually.
There's a sub-objective here too where we can find a fuse box and cut the circuit with our laser watch to disable the spotlights. If you cut the red one, it'll sound the alarms though. So make sure you do it right and only cut the green one. With that done, we easily make our way to the front door and let ourselves into the party being held inside.
I trust you'll maintain a low profile, 007.
Here we are, a moment burned into my mind since childhood. We enter the castle's interior, and optionally we can use our glasses to scan the environment as needed and maintain a low profile while we look for the meeting area where the device we're here for should be hidden.
I'm waiting for someone.
Games that give you pacing and a chance to breathe are just the best. This stretch of gameplay is consumed by nearly nothing, just walking, listening, blending in. This is one of the most crucial parts of the Bond fantasy that so many of the games totally fail to deliver on. And even here, it's still very short-lived, but also very appreciated all the same. Finally making his way into a lobby, Bond sees the host of the party, Juan Raphael Drake, giving a speech to his guests. Beside him is a familiar face, the French intelligence agent we saved in Paris recently, Dominique. From here, Bond makes his way back downstairs to find and relink with Dominique, where I find the synchronized bodyguard thugs.
No party guests in here, sir.
And after that, Bond relinks with Dominique and, Okay, yeah, this might just be an issue of the game being in widescreen, or it could just be a glitch, I'm not sure, but it only really happened in this one cutscene. Also, Zoe Nightshade is here too, making her comeback from Agent Under Fire. They don't actually say anything of value here though, to be honest, and after this, we're back to the shooting. And I mean, I needed to talk about it sooner or later, so now seems like a good time. Nightfire is one of the most beloved Bond games of all time, and with good reason. It absolutely deserves the praise it gets, but the firefight sequences are kind of a step down from Agent Under Fire. There's not breakable stuff all over the place or meticulous lighting choices, etc. It's fine, it's good, I like it, but it's just less impressive in that regard than what came before it. Anyway, it turns out shockingly that Drake really was behind the theft of the missile guidance system.
Here it is, Mr. Drake, the missile guidance module we stole from the Americans. I trust this effort brings us one step closer to globalization.
You've saved our technicians considerable time, Mayhew. Can we accelerate the other Nightfire elements as well?
Absolutely, sir. We're well underway training assault teams for the...
Get your hands off me!
We caught her in the hallway, sir.
I was looking for the powder room.
With lockpicks and a 9mm?
Hey, it's a tough neighborhood.
If this security breach leads back to Japan, it's your head, Mayhew. Secure this in the safe room. I doubt she's alone. Lock the castle down. Now! And take this woman to the cable car station. I don't want her interrogation to upset the guests.
Interrogation? What kind of party is this anyway?
Honestly, the least believable thing I've seen so far is the assertion that the CIA would be working against a globalization effort. All bets are off now as we exit through a window, take out a few of Drake's guards, and zipline across buildings towards the tram building. That guidance system is still here, but it hasn't gone far. Up these stairs, we burn through a security lock with our laser watch, murder these guards, melt through the hinges of this safe, and we're good to go. All that's left is to find and rescue Agent Nightshade, who actually seems to have saved herself already and has secured us both a gondola. As the cart begins its descent, we say goodbye to the castle.
You're mine.
Is that a Hind D? What's a Russian gunship doing here? That character is named Rook, and he's one of the henchman villains of the game. It's convenient that we grabbed a remote control missile launcher on our way out of here too, since we can use it to blow that thing out of the sky.
Hang on to me, Zoe.
I thought you'd never ask. Nice landing, James. Why do you always seem to end up on top?
A lower center of gravity?
And that's Mission 1 of 007 Nightfire. At least for the console version. We still need to take a look at the PC version now. One of the first things I noticed when starting this one up is how the opening cutscene was basically the same, but then also different? The PS2 Halo jump was shorter, less subtle, and actually showed him landing and removing his helmet. The PC version doesn't show him landing because we actually start the mission in the air. And right away you'll notice how different things look here. First off, and this bothered me the entire time I played, Bond's first-person perspective is always in his tuxedo, even though he spends more than half the game in his stealth suit. This feels like such an easy thing to fix, too. I'm not sure how they missed something like this. In the PS2 version, we see Bond's hands, and they're gloved up and clearly match the character we just saw land. But here, he's in his tux from a first-person perspective, but in his jumpsuit from third-person. I just couldn't not notice it is all, and I feel like this wouldn't have been that hard to fix. Also, the game takes away the fun of trying to play with different ways to approach things by having M outright tell you should try sneaking aboard the incoming delivery truck.
007, see if you can sneak aboard that delivery truck.
Sneaking on board the truck is kind of synonymous with the Nightfire opening these days, so I get it, but also, it doesn't work on the PC version. There's nowhere to hide, so you just kind of ride on top of it and are immediately spotted by the guards. I tried this multiple times and couldn't figure out how the game wanted me to do it. I tried entering the back, which you can't. I tried shooting out the spotlight from a distance first, which doesn't work either. I'm sure there's supposed to be a way to ride in on the truck, but I just could not figure it out, and I tried multiple times. The only thing that actually made it work is if I killed everyone before they saw me, and that's not exactly fun because why would I ride in on the truck if I was just going to kill everyone anyway? Still, this does take you into the castle area, just like it does in the console version, so there's that. But also, there is an alternative way into the castle in this version as well, too, that I've got to talk about. You can tell just by looking that these games had similar concepts on paper, but this version looks nothing like its console counterpart. I would say close to 80% of this PC version of the game is totally different from start to finish. But it still does seem like they shared a design document or something, because after using our laser watch to burn off this padlock, we can jump into third person to watch as Bond makes his way across this rope. And look, they even had Bond be gloveless, I guess to make it more similar to the Tuxedo FPS perspective maybe?
So you do know the difference!
But why would he take his gloves off after landing on top of a snow-covered mountain? Isn't it cold? I don't get this at all. Also, we have to time our movements in between this electrical wire glitching, or it zaps us and drops us back down, making us have to start over again. I do like that they incorporated the first-person to third-person environmental elements like this, though. And we do scale the side of the castle just like in the other version, but this time we're avoiding a spotlight. But the ledge shimmy section is here again, which I thought was a nice touch. It's just such a bizarre experience to play through a version of a game that you've played before that's similar, but also still totally different somehow. Like, I mean, we saw something like this with The World Is Not Enough, but this isn't an adaptation of a movie. Nightfire is its own original game, and there's two of them that are nothing alike. EA really handed two different teams a design document and let them both make their own original ideas of what the game could look like, and then let the best man win. It's so strange. Anyway, the courtyard area is here as well, but again, totally different layout. There's nothing familiar here to the console version at all. Instead of lasering the control panel for the spotlights, we just shut down a generator and then find the entrance to the party. So that party's like the PS2 version. Then pretty much all of the cutscenes are similar but different too. And look, he's wearing gloves in this cutscene, so he didn't take them off, he's just not wearing them in the gameplay sections. Why? The party section is, again, completely different, but it does look significantly more lavish design-wise. Honestly, maybe too lavish. The aesthetic of this level resembles a mansion more than an old European castle. The PS2 sequence felt cold and a bit rustic, like a group of million and billionaires had congregated in a hundreds of years old castle retrofitted to accommodate guests, but not originally built with the modern luxuries in mind. This interior feels more like a royal palace, and it's shorter too. We get a different version of Drake's speech cutscene where we see Dominique again, but this time without the prior establishment of Bond's pre-existing relationship with her, which isn't that big of a deal, but I did find it interesting. Rook's character is here too, but he's just standing guard at a door this time instead of walking past seeming like he was busy. We do actually use our little camera lighter for an objective, which we don't do in the console version, so that's cool. And this cutscene where Bond meets up with Dominique and Nightshade is also different but similar. Like, even the dialogue and movements are borderline the same, but the environment had been changed to match how the room looks in the PC version, which, again, why? Why not just use the same room design across versions rather than creating two separate but similar pre-rendered cutscenes? I've spent too much time on this opening level. It's all going to be about the same as I've said, same concept and progression, but the layout and rooms all look really different. This is honestly one of the more similar levels across versions too, which again I found interesting. And it also ends the same way with Bond and Nightshade riding out of the castle on a gondola before using a remote-controlled missile launcher to destroy Rook's helicopter. Once again though, the pre-rendered cutscene is different but similar, and the voice acting is worse for some reason.
Nice landing, James. Why do you always seem to end up on top?
A lower center of gravity?
Mission 2 is where things get really different between versions, but before we head back over to the PS2 version, let's take a look at what the GBA had to offer for its first level. Okay, so I've got to admit here, this was one of the most shockingly accurate attempts at making a GBA version of a console game I've ever seen. It's actually a 3D FPS on the Game Boy Advance. I know there's a few of these, but I'm always just so shocked to see these exist. And even the music is a really well done compressed version of the same tracks you'd hear if you played the main versions. I'm not saying it's good, because I don't think it particularly is, but it is accurate. I mean, it's got all of the same weapons and gadgets you'd find in the PS2 version, for example, and the level layout is super similar too. It really is exactly like if you crushed the main versions of the game down into a mobile version and stuffed it into a GBA cartridge. They even have the same party scene and the gondola and everything. Seriously, it may not be very fun, but it is impressive. Bond and Agent Nightshade find a heavily armed snowmobile of sorts before Bond straps a bomb to the building, and we're given a turret with 3,000 bullets in it. I always found it so charming that they bothered to show us our 3,000 rounds here. Like, just make it infinite ammo, nobody cares that much. As you can clearly see, we're in for a rail shooter section, and it's actually great. Moving through a dense snow-covered Austrian forest on a decked-out snowmobile while being pursued by a plethora of bad guys is very in line with what you'd want to see in a Bond story. And there's a good number of spectacle set pieces on offer here too. And shockingly, Zoe can even get stuck on a tree. I've played this mission a lot throughout my life, and I don't recall this ever happening. Very odd. It's a great section, much like the Agent Under Fire rail sections were, but it is specific to the console version and doesn't appear in the PC version at all.
Looks like we're on foot from here.
Where exactly is here, James?
Not far from my rendezvous point.
Bond and Nightshade then find a cabin where Q left him his car for extraction. And it is the BMW V12 Vanquish, again, as seen in Die Another Day. It is the first real car section of the game if you're not counting the 15-second segment from the game's prologue, and it is genuinely great, but I was missing the semi-open world level layouts of the Agent Under Fire car missions. The level is exceedingly linear, basically putting you on a straight path with one or two little detour paths available for players to take if they want, but they're so obvious that the cinematic detours just feel like part of the linear level design in themselves. Pointing at the linearity of the level isn't meant to be a criticism, by the way. I still do really like the level, and I think it's cool. I just felt like it was a step down from how exciting the car missions were in Agent Under Fire because the player just has less agency over their movement and actions here. The scenery is stellar though, the car controls excellently, and it does legitimately capture that kind of Bond-esque car chase feel from some of the films. It all ends in a showdown on top of a frozen lake as we use our car's missiles and machine guns to take out the remaining enemies, including a helicopter. Very clearly trying to tie itself into Die Another Day in that aspect, which also featured a very similar snow-based car sequence. Overall, it's great, but like I said earlier, the PC version doesn't have this, and doesn't feature any vehicle sections whatsoever, so let's take a look at what we get in this vehicle level's place.
We may have found a way off this mountain. Unless we take out the control tower tracking system, we'll have another attack helicopter on us. Get to the security office and disable the alarms. I'll handle the tower.
Rather than back-to-back vehicle levels, we get an entirely unique on-foot level in their place, and it's actually probably one of the most unique levels in this version of the game. There's nothing even close to this in the console or GBA versions, and it does feel pretty special in that regard. Making their way down the mountain away from Drake's castle, Bond and Zoe find some kind of paramilitary base by Drake's personal airfield. I ended up really enjoying myself on this mission too. There's just something about sneaking around in a snow-covered base like this and taking out enemies with headshots while trying not to be spotted. Stealth isn't optional here either. You have to remain undetected or you get a game over. We move around the back of the building, melt the padlock off the generator, and flip the switch to disable the security searchlights. We also get to see Agent Nightshade in action for the first time as she hops a railing and infiltrates a building. There's also something so insanely liminal about the interior of these office buildings. I don't quite know how to explain it, but walking through these halls it's something. There's a really cozy feeling in being in these office halls in the dark, isolated snows somewhere in Austria midwinter. I really liked this. Honestly, Gearbox did a great job on this one. The massive Phoenix logo makes such good world building, and this genuinely feels like the office building of an international major corporation. Gearbox is so hit or miss so much of the time for me, man, so it's nice that I can give them some praise on this one. This level is actually great, very immersive and fun to play. Until Zoe sets off the alarm, that is. The level does get a little bit worse after this point, but not in any major way. It's still fine, it just descends into a bunch of shooting gameplay.
No, I don't think it's good. I
think it's bad.
I don't think it's that bad.
The rest of the level is centered on finding a plane, refueling it, and covering Zoe while she gets it ready for flight, all of the while killing a ludicrous number of Drake security around the area. Eventually, she gets the thing on the runway, and Bond gets on board just in time for takeoff.
Welcome aboard.
Set course for the Swiss border. We have to get the guidance chip into safe hands as soon as possible.
Moving back over to the PS2 version, Bond heads to China to meet up with Drake's chief of Beijing operations for his company Phoenix International. A man named Alexander Mayhew, whom we saw in that castle back there, is worried that Drake is plotting to assassinate him for what happened in Austria.
Ah, Mr. Bond, at last. This is Kiko Hayashi, my bodyguard. I assure you, she's quite skilled.
No doubt. The Nightfire data, Mayhew.
We weren't expecting other guests. Please, stay with Alex.
It's Drake. Quick! We must get to the security bunker.
Well, there's the cavalry. Now, for a lot of people, this is one of the most well-remembered missions in the game, and for a lot of good reasons. It's got incredible atmosphere, stellar set design, interesting level layouts, and a good blend between action gameplay and opportunities for stealth. The whole mission is based in this large Oriental-themed luxury estate, complete with hidden passages, underground tunnels, multiple courtyards, and a variety of different interconnected buildings, including, and I'm not even joking, a servant quarters.
And please protect my servants. They're like family to me.
It's basically a mansion that we get to sneak and fight our way through. I mean, I'd happily live here in real life if I had the 350,525,000 yuan laying around to buy it. That's roughly 50 million USD, by the way. I'm just guesstimating. The glasses are a cool feature for the game too, but are pretty much never ever useful in any way that I could find, despite my trying really hard to do so. The infrared mode barely works and won't show enemies on the other side of a wall unless they're really close to you, and the night vision actually makes it harder to see than if you weren't using them in the first place. It's really not my favorite level, to be honest with you. The verticality and different ways to approach a few sections are cool, but I mean, I like the idea of it more than the execution. I will say though that this version is easily the best of the 3 different iterations. We find the key we need beneath the green dragon statue, rescue Mayhew's servants, and escort him to our V-12 Vanquish to get out of here.
Wait here.
Let's get moving.
Oh yeah, and we've got a boss fight in the form of this ninja assassin, and I hate it. The character is a complete bullet sponge, blinds you constantly with flashbangs, and is overall just annoying to deal with. But again, still the best version of the 3 fights.
Code key you found in my safe will lead you to the Nightfire evidence, the Phoenix building in Tokyo. Tokyo? You'll need the password to the mainframe. It's Afterburn. I thought the evidence was here, Mayhew. Did a little extra insurance policy to keep me alive. A lot of good it did me.
I was pinned down. Alex. I promise you, Drake will pay.
But of course, now we need to talk about the PC version of this level called Uninvited Guests. I'll mainly just be going over the primary differences between the versions when they're so similar like this, because several of these levels are extraordinarily similar to one another, with this one being one of the most like its console counterparts. With 2 extreme differences that make it the absolute worst, and I'm not talking about the cute koi fish they included, which is a nice touch. No, I'm talking about the loading screens. See, the PS2 version had to split the estate up across something like 3 or 4 areas, I think, to be able to run on consoles. This PC version did the same exact thing for reasons, I guess? It's insufferable. Every area takes twice as long to load as the emulator did, and the whole thing is significantly larger than the console version too, like by a lot. And I found myself having to backtrack constantly because I couldn't figure out where anything was, and this PC version of the estate is like a labyrinth. It weaves in and out of itself, with some doors to other areas being locked, forcing you to go around, and it's all just so frustrating. I got so sick of staring at this loading screen, and from here on out, it was hard to get the sour taste of this level out of my mouth, because it's like the closest level to its console counterpart in terms of layout, but with more loading screens somehow. Which, okay, fine, Half-Life needed loading screens too, and it was on the PC, but the problem is that this game features several levels that are twice as big as this one with a similar amount of assets, and none of them have half the loading screens this level does. I don't want to sit here and just complain about the loading screens the whole time for this level, but the fact is that other than that, it's really not all that different. We have to use our third-person rope traversal mechanic here, which is unique to this version, and there's more locked boxes for us to use our laser watch on, but all of this is just the result of the PC version being twice the size and length of the console version. I will say this though, I think I'd have liked this level way more if I had never played the console version before. Like, if my only experience was with this PC version, I genuinely think it would have felt exciting enough to overlook the constant load screens. Also, this loading screen problem pretty much never happens again. The pacing of every other PC level here is handled well enough where the load screens feel natural rather than intrusive. The look of this level is also incredible. The asset and art designers did a spectacular job decorating the level. Seriously, it's a treat to look at. As for the GBA version, I'm shocked to say that it's also really similar to both of the other versions. I'm kind of blown away by how close they managed to get it. They even included a Mayhew-friendly NPC who follows you like that was not needed. The layout is like a hyper-condensed version of the PS2 version with several familiar rooms ripped straight from the console, compressed and stuffed into the GBA. This part where we have to use our grapple hook phone to progress really threw me for a major loop for a while because I just wasn't considering that they would put something like that on a handheld console, and also it took me until several missions later to figure out that there was a way to look up and down because it's just so unintuitive to do. We even rescue his servants, and the green dragon statue is here too, along with the objective to destroy his hard drive. Hats off to these guys. It may not be fun to play, but it is easily one of the most ambitious and impressive GBA games I've looked at yet.
Go up to the lobby and then look for the main tower elevators. I'll alert you if there's anything suspicious at the street level.
Now this one is actually a lot of people's favorite mission, and for good reason, because it's just so much fun. It's mostly stealth-based with a variety of items to use for suppressing enemies non-lethally, like your car key stunner and tranquilizer dart, but my favorite, and also the most useful in my opinion, is just punch everyone out.
You! Don't move!
I've said it several times already, but I feel like it warrants saying again that this game is completely gorgeous. This is arguably the most atmospheric level of the game too, which really warrants pointing it out as much as I can. In the lobby of the Phoenix Tower, we sneak into the security room where we see a pretty cool 3D hologram of the building we're in before putting the building's laser tripwire system through a brief reset and activating the main elevator. But man, it's the building's entrance that really does it for me. The slow jazzy Bond music, the pouring rain splashing against the glass, the color and dark room giving that feeling of being in a building after hours. Even the hanging glass panels are so good. The developers really were working some magic on this game, man. It's gorgeous. Anyway, we take the elevator to the upper floors where the view is, once again, immaculate. The neon glow of the city signs casting across an overcast, rainy night sky. I mean, it's not even just a good Bond game at this point. I'd be thrilled playing a level like this if it was an original IP. Not to mention the cozy feeling of these dimly lit office hallways, complete with decorative plants and photos on the wall. There's even water coolers and vending machines. I mean, you can really see how much care went into the aesthetic design of every level. Our objective here is simple. Stay out of sight, avoid layer tripwires, find our 2 target computers, and infect them with Q-Branch's supplied Q-worm virus. Something I also love about this level is that you're equipped with a decoder gadget that can break through any keypads you come across, but if you interact with a couple of specific desktops, you can just find the door codes that way. It's very MSIM adjacent, like something you'd see in a Deus Ex game. You guys know I love stuff like this. Eventually though, we do manage to distribute all of the Q-worm viruses and make our way to the roof where Bond sees a familiar face again. Oh, and they have reflections of the lights off of the puddle of water there, so that's basically RTX, right? The penthouse floor is up there, and our only way up is to ride this elevator to the top. True Bond fans will recognize this as a nod to a similar scene from the film Diamonds Are Forever. Members and patrons will receive exclusive access to that review along with all of my other 007 film reviews when we get there. Sign up now. Once inside the executive level floor, Bond hacks a keypad and finds Mayhew's office computer where he gains access to the building's main vault. And there it is, the Nightfire data we've been searching for.
What's happened up there, James? The street outside is swarming with security agents!
And it's a trap, so that's our cue to leave.
You must get out of here, James. It's a trap.
I put that together when your boyfriend's chopper nearly clipped me off the building.
You don't understand. Drake couldn't open Mayu's safe without the password, and he's not going to let the Nightfire files live with you. These stairs go directly to the roof. You'll find a parachute in the helicopter. It's your only chance of escape.
On the roof now, we take on a chopper along with a rooftop full of Drake's men while hiding behind a large boulder.
It's a rock!
But after a brief firefight, Bond grabs a parachute from the landed chopper and exits in pure Bondian form.
Sorry to drop in like this, but would you ladies mind giving me a ride?
The idea that two Japanese teenagers would see a middle-aged white guy land on their car in full-on infiltration military gear before asking for a ride and just start giggling rather than screaming in terror is arguably the single most unrealistic thing about this game. And we go to actual space later and kill astronauts with space lasers. I'm not even joking. So back to the PC version of the game, the levels are very, very similar, except everything here is, and this is going to be the case between the two versions pretty much every time, way bigger. Also, how is this laser watch hot enough to melt steel, but doesn't hurt this dude? What? Guess he was stunned it was already time for his break. The progression here is identical, but the design of the levels is significantly different. We start in the parking garage, move up to the lobby, turn off the security measures, turn on the elevator, install the Q-worm viruses, the whole 9 yards. So let's talk about what's different. First off, like I said earlier, and I will say again later, everything here is roughly double the size of the console version. The lobby is massive, and although I prefer the design of the console version, there is something pretty breathtaking about the way everything here looks. Like, this is a legitimately gorgeous building. The layout of the upper floor area is way more similar to the console version though. It is still a bit bigger, but it's overall way closer than a lot of the other sections of the game. And our Q specs actually serve a purpose here, showing us lasers that we really need to avoid, which you basically never need in the console version. There's also an entirely new section here unique to the PC, where Bond wanders through these interior industrial areas where it looks like all of the HVAC equipment seems to be handled. There's nothing even close to this on the PS2. And you do have to kind of stealth through it here too, which is pretty cool. Anyway, that area leads you out to the roof area, so I applaud them for expanding on this area like that. And speaking of, Gearbox even programmed something special here that I'd say is arguably the coolest and most memorable part of the PC version. This is like some Mission Impossible stuff. We have to use these suction cups to scale the side of this skyscraper in the rain while also avoiding the eyes of any guards who might be gazing out of the window. Just like in earlier PC levels, if they see you, it is game over, by the way, so you really do have to avoid detection. Overall, I'd say this is one of the most impressive things about the PC version. I wonder if something like this was supposed to be featured in the console version too, or if this was just a Gearbox idea to include. The executive floor part of the level is also pretty different, but man, I gotta give Gearbox some more props again for going all in on the whole Phoenix logo idea. I mean, they really loved this logo design. Interestingly, the vault containing the Nightfire data is nearly identical to the one in the console version too, so I guess they were sharing ideas back and forth, except this time the vault didn't have turrets descending from the ceiling. We also have an extra objective here where Bond installs a bug in Drake's meeting room for MI6 to listen in on future meetings. We get the staircase cinematic between Bond and Dominique here too, although why is the voice acting so much worse in this version?
You must get out of here, James. It's a trap.
I put that together when
You don't understand. Drake couldn't open Mayu's safe without a password, and he's not going to let the Nightfire files leave with you.
Could they not share voice lines between teams? Why is it like this? The final roof section is really different, however. Here, Drake's penthouse office is its own room sectioned off with several massive windows opening up to the sky, and again, Gearbox's dedication to this Phoenix logo in a world-building sense is beyond crazy. Like, I can totally see why anyone playing this copy of the game may have gotten totally immersed in this world. Like, they did a good job on that end. This has Bond villain written all over it. Using our decoder, we break into Drake's hidden vault here and get some ammo, but stupidly, it won't let us access the rocket launcher we'll need to defeat the helicopter helicopter until after we run around and shoot the thing with regular firearms for a while. So I do that until the chopper blows a hole in the wall, allowing us to access the missile launcher, and then we can use that to destroy the thing. For a vehicle boss battle, I don't hate it.
No, I don't think it's good. I
don't think it's bad.
I don't think it's that bad.
It's just kind of annoying. Anyway, when we take the chopper down, we're treated to a better version of the cutscene from the PS2 version, except... Why would they make their secret agent's parachute a giant British Union Jack flag? Seems a bit of a bad idea from intelligence agency. The Game Boy Advance take on this level is once again a lot more accurate than you'd think it would be. The layout is very similar, and we do have to sneak around hallways and knock out guards to avoid being seen while making our way to the desktop, where we'll insert the key worm before making our way to the roof. Your biggest obstacle here, though, is just going to be the controls. I mean, it really is just unintuitive to play through. Although there are a lot of objects laid out to make everything look more interesting to look at, so there's that. This rooftop sequence, on the other hand, is just terrible, and the fact that the game demands you complete each mission with a certain rank in order to progress means you'll have to put yourself through each of these levels at least twice, more than likely. It's a little bit torturous, to tell you the truth. The info that MI6 was able to decrypt from the Nightfire data we stole led them to some coordinates pointing right at a now closed down nuclear power plant not far from Tokyo that Phoenix International has been contracted to clean up and prepare for repurposing. Evidence points to massive amounts of construction taking place inside the plant, however, which means, of course, it's our job to sneak in and figure out what the hell Drake is hiding here.
Best of luck.
Of course, dismantling a nuclear reactor is an incredibly delicate operation.
And dangerous as well, yes?
That is why we've invested in robot technology, like those forklifts. Insanely expensive. But keeping our people safe is important. And when our work is done, the beaches here will be clean enough for our children to swim and their grandfathers to fish.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. I appreciate the exclusive interview.
And so do I. Interview is over, Mr. Rook.
All snipers back in position.
You know, I kind of feel like Drake is an underrated Bond villain. This is probably one of the most straightforward levels of the game. It's pretty much just constant action gameplay from start to finish, but it is really cool how it opens up on a sniper battle on this rooftop. I cleared it pretty fast because I played this enough to kinda know where the snipers are already, but if you've never played this level before, it can be intense. Dropping down the vent, we're greeted to a warehouse of thugs to take down, and we can actually enter this building through two separate vents depending on which one you find. And it happens that some of Drake's scientists are working on this armor tech of some kind down here, like an astronaut jet suit or something. If you're playing this on a higher difficulty, you might actually need to pull out your camera lighter and snap a shot of this thing to send data back to MI6. Probably the element that this mission is known for, however, is the various areas where you have to climb across these ropes to cross gaps. I love how this game incorporates these third-person interactions too. I think it's so unique and cool. I only lament that we didn't get more of them, honestly. This particular one is, in fact, probably one of the most iconic moments from the game just because the shot is so memorable.
Squad 4, do you copy? Squad 4, what the hell's happening up there? Deploy the red team and take him down.
There goes Rook. Keep in mind that this is the last time we see him in this mission, by the way. Something else very specific to this section also is that once the snipers spot you, they'll give real-time callouts to each other regarding your actual location.
He's almost there. He's behind the shipping crates.
I was kind of caught off guard by this, actually. What a small detail that they didn't need to bother with, but that makes you feel so much more out in the open in this courtyard. This is back when developers cared about things like suspension of disbelief, though. In the back of this last warehouse, we find out one of the things Drake has been working on down here is some kind of laser. No, really, look. Dude, the sound design for this thing is insane. Either way, we snap a photo of the evidence and say goodbye to our time here. Bond has places to be. Okay, so strangely, for some reason, the PC version of this level is just an entirely different mission altogether. We start crawling around in some vents, which, to the game's credit, have multiple exits that will determine where the player starts the mission when they decide to drop in. And also, at least we have X-ray glasses in this version that actually work and let me see through walls. The Q-specs in the console version are borderline useless, but I use them in this version quite a bit. We are also in some kind of factory in this one, similar to the other iteration, but this time everything is so much more corridor heavy. We're not having rooftop sniper battles or scaling across a rope over vast open courtyards, we're corridor shooting our way into more corridors. That's not to say there's nothing interesting about this level, because there is one specific thing that helps this mission stand out from the others.
Not exactly up to my tailoring standards, but it'll do.
Yeah, instead of playing with a mounted laser for like a minute or two at the end of the level, we're given a full-on laser rifle to play with as we're stuffed into, well, I think it's supposed to be an astronaut suit, but we'll be moving around underwater in this level, not in space. I was really caught off guard by this sequence because it's actually pretty fun and controls well. There's nothing like this in the PS2 game, but one issue I had was that the sound design kept playing sloshing sounds while underwater every time I moved and would not stop. It was super annoying. There had to be a better way to do this. Anyway, remember how I mentioned to note that Rook shows up and leaves in the PS2 version before we can confront him? Well, at the end of all of this, we find Rook waiting for us decked out in his own spacesuit, and it turns out the boosters that let us move around underwater can also jettison us around. This leads us to a boss battle against Rook in this tunnel as Drake watches in typical Bond villain form.
You should have killed me when you had the chance.
As far as boss battles go, it kinda sucks and is just annoying rather than challenging. Rook has an advanced suit that lets him fly around freely with a jetpack, while we have to time our jumps and make use of this giant fan in order to jettison up to where he is, and so we spend way more time jumping than we do shooting. And when we are shooting, it's just, I mean, see for yourself.
Congratulations, Mr. Bond. You've reached the end of your training.
Shut it down, Mr. Drake! I can handle Bond!
I beg to differ. Sayonara, Mr. Rook.
Riveting. So this is where Rook dies in the PC game, and I actually do prefer it to the console version, honestly, which we haven't gotten to yet. I mean, the boss battle sucks, but narratively speaking, I do think this was a much better point in the story for Rook to bite it, and the console version should have followed suit, so this is a place where the PC version wins for me, pacing-wise.
Done in by his biggest fan.
So the GBA version of this level opens similarly to the PS2 version, with Bond dropping into a warehouse where they're holding the experimental version of the spacesuit. We did skip the opening rooftop sniper battle, but don't worry because there's going to be some sniping later. Now, this was the level where I had to learn that you could look up and down while playing the game, because in order to snipe effectively, you have to look up, and also to progress in general since you'll need to use your grapple hook to get to the top of this silo. I don't want to talk about how long I tried to figure this out before giving up and looking up a walkthrough. The rest of the level progresses like a condensed version of the PS2 game, as you'd expect, with them even going as far as building out this 3D crane model on the Game Boy Advance. Things get real though around here, however, as this ending sequence where we have to fight our way to the turret-mounted laser to snap a photo of the evidence is insane. I was basically save scumming like you would not believe. Not even joking about how difficult this game is, by the way. If you were able to complete this game on hardware as a kid without using cheats, I genuinely applaud you, because I wasn't. I hadn't fallen back on cheats just yet at this point, but I was save scumming. It's what happens after this bit though where I was really caught off guard. We get a GBA rendition of the PC version sequence putting us underwater in a spacesuit with a laser. Now, this outright confirms some suspicions I had up to this point that the GBA version of the game was cherry-picking different moments across both versions of Nightfire to include. It's mostly pulling from the console version, but there are certain parts like this one where the game features segments from the PC iteration, and I do think that's pretty cool. Although, it'd be way cooler if the game felt better to play. The boss battle with Rook is here too, which I liked, and somehow, surprisingly, it's easier on the GBA than it was on the PC version.
Kiko, where have you been?
Trying to catch up with you. Get with me. Come on.
This is sort of the halfway point where the stakes are getting raised. I'm just gonna let this play out because I love this next cutscene.
You must be exhausted, James. What would you say to a little nap?
I'd ask you to join us, Mr. Bond, but why waste caviar on a man who won't live long enough to enjoy it?
Give mine to Kiko. She's earned it.
Don't take it personally. Women have an advantage, you see.
They can blind us with love, but that's why we have other eyes to watch them. Like the hidden camera in the stairwell leading to the helipad.
I don't understand, Raphael.
Please, don't insult me further. It's a pity. I fell quite hard for you. And now it's time you did the same for me. Goodbye, Dominique. Use the helipad and take care of the body.
No!
It's futile, Mr. Bond. You've seen too much of my operation to live, but I wanted you to enjoy this moment first.
Well, we're back in the Phoenix Tower in what is probably one of my favorite reuses of a level I've ever seen in a game. As you can readily see, the whole level is just the Night Shift stealth level, but played in reverse. So, I mean, we've already seen all of this before, and the biggest difference, other than that we're playing it backwards, is that it's straight action from beginning to end, rather than being mostly stealth-focused. Some highlights I will point out are the stairwell fight where we're assaulted by Drake's paramilitary is really cinematic and cool and doesn't overstay its welcome, which is nice, and you should take note of my saying that. I also like the Phoenix Ronin weapon that we can place down in the shape of a briefcase and watch transform into a minigun. Also, we can even remote control the thing, which is cool. It's not the most useful thing, I have to admit, and they should have included it in a level at the end where it would have been more useful, but it's fine here too. The most unique addition to this level is the elevator sequence they made specifically for this mission, where instead of just taking the elevator down like normal, Bond has to ride on top of one while the malicious soldiers pry open various elevator doors to take shots at him. Oh, and they drop these bombs down to blow us up that we have to disable using Bond's laser watch. Even when the devs were reusing level assets, they still managed to make it all so cool. The last sequence here has us shooting our way through the lobby to the security room where we deactivate the building's lobby security and make a break for the front door.
Need a lift, Mr. Bond? Allura McCall, Australian intelligence, on loan to MI6.
Back to the Gearbox port, the rooftop cutscene plays out pretty much exactly the same here as it did on the console version. Even the voice acting is the same. I think this might be an instance of the two versions straight up sharing a cutscene, which is fine because it's a great cinematic. Where the game goes from here, however, is intensely different. We start in the elevator still, but instead of getting off on the executive floor like we did in the other iteration, we're going to be stuck here for a minute while the entire elevator slowly gets shot to actual pieces by Drake's guards. And this goes on for a serious minute, honestly. Like, it took so many playthroughs to figure out how to beat this part because if the elevator takes too much damage, it's just game over. And the times I tried to make it to the bottom, it didn't work because the elevator just falls out from under you no matter what you do. So now tell me, looking at this scene where the elevator has this chunk blown out of it, what do you think the player is expected to do? If you said jump out and land on that giant concrete balcony, you're wrong. Yeah, it won't let you. But on the other hand, it is impressive that Bond's body will break the glass on that lobby roof and drop the player into the lobby area. Which honestly just pisses me off more, because what do you mean they can render all of this out without needing a loading screen, but you have like 7 different loading screens across a single building in the Mayhew estate level? Is it an asset thing? I don't get it. Anyway, what you're supposed to do is keep the elevator functioning long enough to get to this specific point where they shoot out this window, revealing a conveniently placed hook to grapple onto. And this is the part where I kind of thought I might be home free. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Unlike the console version of this level that's high octane without overstaying its welcome, this level just goes on and on relentlessly. Actually, all of the PC levels from here on out are roughly double the length of their console counterparts, making the PC version of the game quite literally more than twice as long. There were honestly times where it felt like this version was the real game and the console versions were like some kind of much higher quality novelty version. And I cannot elaborate to you how little I enjoyed this level. What you're seeing on screen right now, corridor shooting through offices, it's like this for like 35 minutes straight, and we have to constantly go in and out of the staircase over and over. It's just so much. Eventually we make it back to the parking garage where we get a sort of boss battle with an armored van, and it's fine, I guess. Weird decision to make a boss battle out of a van, and I've never seen a van take so many direct hit rockets before. So yeah, the PC version of that level just drags on for too long and feels repetitive, sure, but that's nothing compared to the GBA version. This was the level that made me just start cheating my way through the rest of this game. There's an invincibility cheat, and after getting wrecked by this level for over 30 minutes straight, I said, screw it, I'm not going to get good at a 2-decades-year-old GBA FPS. And I mean, it's also just a reverse retread of the earlier Phoenix Tower level, but without enough health and ammo to make it reasonable. Seriously, I'm playing this on an Xbox controller while abusing save states, and I still can't move or aim well enough to deal with these guards before my health is incinerated by what are almost assuredly hit scans. How anyone was expected to beat this on analog hardware is beyond me, and you just know someone did too. It's not even that long of a level, it's just really hard to get through without dying, especially the lobby. After this, it was smooth sailing, however, because I just punched in an invincibility cheat and called it a day. So it turns out old Raphael Drake owns a nuclear missile disassembly facility out in the South Pacific, and despite investigations from the UN turning up nothing, MI6 believes that he's harboring active missiles somewhere in the vicinity.
The Vanquish should provide the most discreet approach to Drake's Island. Agent McCall, if you please.
We're driving there?
Precisely. Ignore that sinking feeling, Agent McCall. Everything is under control.
And here is one of the things that has helped the PS2 version tower over its PC counterpart for so long: a fully fleshed out underwater car section. This was something that Bond developers had dreamed of doing going back as far as the PS1 adaptation of Tomorrow Never Dies, where in my coverage of that game I showed some screenshots of an early build featuring an underwater car-based vehicle section. And here it is, now fully realized and surprisingly entertaining. Also, interestingly, this shipwrecked vessel belonged to Malprave Industries, the company belonging to Adrian Malprave from the previous 007 game, Agent Under Fire. I do enjoy this bit of connective tissue between the two games, honestly. I even kind of wish they'd gone in on this idea a bit harder. We get to do some fun things here too, like using remote-controlled missiles to knock out control panels and allow us to proceed through areas that were being guarded by laser tripwires, not to mention that there's plenty of combat against some of Drake's smaller one-man submarines and even a full-size submarine at one point. Also, here is where we find Drake's stash of nuclear missiles being prepped for launch. He hasn't been disassembling them at all, he's been repurposing them for his own gain. Surprise, surprise. So of course, we have to plant a handful of Q-Charge EMP devices around all of his launch assemblies to make sure he can't go firing off random nukes on a whim for whatever his plan is. Honestly, it's a great mission, and in my book, getting to play this sequence out is crucial to fully experiencing the Nightfire story, which more fully cements this version as the definitive Nightfire iteration.
There's never valet parking when you need it most.
So we're sticking with the console version for now as we go from one stellar vehicle segment straight to another in the form of Bond and Allura commandeering one of Drake's military vehicles. And it's got all the basics too, I'm sure, like air conditioning, radio, hidden rocket launchers, and a fully automatic auto-targeting roof-mounted 50 caliber machine gun. It plays a lot like the other car parts from earlier in the game, but with the additional mechanic of needing to take a detour and acquire the access codes for these massive metal grates standing between us and Drake's base. Also, did I mention this whole section is actually kind of hard? You need to be playing it smart to not use up all of your missiles too fast while also minimizing the damage you take, otherwise you're gonna have a hard time here. These massive turrets will rip you to pieces really quickly too, and each one of them has to be destroyed in order to progress. Not to mention this ending arena is particularly hard because you can't target it without basically standing still, and if you don't have enough health to withstand its barrage of bullets, then you'll be restarting the level until you do. Fortunately, this whole car part is pretty short, which I bet is part of the reason they made it more difficult, so you'd have to replay it a couple of times and pad the game's runtime. This is only the first half of the level though, with the second part comprising of an actually pretty stellar on-rail sequence following Bond and Allura stealing one of Drake's planes. and then we immediately blow up a bridge, killing dozens.
That bridge is Drake's primary access route across the island, 007. Bring it down.
I'm typically a casual rail shooter enjoyer, honestly, and so unsurprisingly, I've got nothing but good things to say about this sequence. The scenery is fantastic, the enemies and pacing are both great, the skybox is beautiful, and it's all around just a stunning sequence to participate in, while giving the player a nice break from the standard gameplay loop of the other levels. Eventually, we're shot down and the level ends off in one final turret sequence that sees us guarding Allura while she plants a bomb, and we shoot down a number of Drake's planes, along with destroying a few of his tanks and another full submarine. The basic premise of the PC version's finale is the same, being set on Drake's private island and all, but the execution varies significantly. First off, since there's no vehicle mechanics in this iteration, we don't get the underwater car part, the on-land stolen SUV part, or the on-rails plane part. All of that is replaced by a really long island-based level that looks like something out of the original Far Cry. I kinda liked it too in some places, particularly this opening area where everything is outdoorsy and tropical. It's very unique and unlike most things we've seen in a Bond game so far. So obviously there are some differences here to note too. First off, we didn't get here in Bond's V12 Vanquish, but rather he showed up on a one-man boat, and rather than starting us with Allura and having the two of them fight their way to Drake's base together, Allura got captured before our arrival and we've been tasked with finding and rescuing her. Before long, we find ourselves buried in these underground tunnels, and this is where things felt at their most Half-Life. Like, it was this specific level where it dawned on me that I really am just playing a super high-quality Half-Life mod with a 007 theme. I'm not complaining, obviously, because Half-Life is great, but, I mean, it even kind of starts to look like Half-Life at some points. This part where we're having a firefight around a massive missile that Bond proceeds to set bombs around and blow up is pretty great, though. And there is some really awesome level design going on here. Like, this vertical spiral upwards really reminded me of that one scene from the penultimate mission of GoldenEye. You guys know what I'm talking about. At the top of the climb, we find Allura being held captive behind a locked door that we crack open with our handy decoder tool, and she joins you as a friendly NPC after this, which I did think was pretty cool. I don't think the console version featured any friendly NPCs that fought alongside you during combat. Well, unless you count Mayhew for like 60 seconds, but he wasn't very useful. Whereas this version has us physically fighting along both Zoe Nightshade and Allura McCall. It's good stuff. And again, the outdoor areas in this level really stood out to me visually. We kind of temporarily split off from Allura here to infiltrate and wipe out these satellite dishes that are blocking our ability to contact MI6. And with that done, Bond radios back into M, where she gives him the green light to continue infiltration and put a permanent end to Drake's operation. Oh, and we get to blow up that same bridge again, but rather than just shooting it down this time, we have to swim up to the bridge and place charges on 3 of its major support pillars to blow the whole thing up. Honestly, it was kind of cinematic to play.
That did the trick. Nice to have someone watching my backside.
I've always got an eye on your tail, Allura. Shall we?
Speaking of NPC companions, this GBA version somehow manages to render out a 3D version of the island beach and feature a functioning Allura NPC to fight beside you. And that's just about all of the positive things I have left to say about this port. Sorry guys, I really wasn't having any fun with this one by this point, and there's not really much left to say about it. We have to fight our way up the side of this cliff, where we'll spend the rest of the level killing way too many of Drake's militia, and using some satchel charges we picked up to blow up some satellite dishes similar to the PC version of the level. Which took me way too long to figure out since I kept trying to blow up these computer terminals for some reason, to no avail. Anyway, back to the PS2.
No reception committee.
The system's active.
We need a comlink. See if you can patch in.
Why do I have the feeling we're about to split up again?
This shaft's drawing air, and I have a good idea why. Inform MI6 of our location. I'll be in touch, Allura.
So this is the penultimate mission of the game, and unsurprisingly, this is also the best version of it by far. We start off an event where we can kind of pick where we want to drop down, and this is inarguably the best mission for some real stealth espionage gameplay. Finally, some real spy action.
Bond may have penetrated our security. Lock down the sector at once, and deactivate all access codes but my own.
Right away, Miss Hayashi.
I'm going to do a full sweep of this facility. Remain at your post and stay alert.
Understood, Miss Hayashi.
In this level, we are given a crossbow with what I think are supposed to be tranq darts similar to the night shift mission from before, and the whole punching guys out method is less effective here since their HP is a lot higher, I presume due to them being soldiers and not security guards. The mechanic of opening a fuse box and lasering the cameras off even makes a comeback here too, which is great since we haven't seen that since the first level. Really, a lot of this for my playthrough was staying hidden while Allura monitored the cameras to keep me posted on Kiko's location so we could trail behind her and eventually try and access the control center. And for what I think might be the only time they actually matter in this version, we use the Q-specs to dodge some lasers here too. I presume you can just go loud and kill your way to Kiko here if you wanted, but I didn't try.
The launch timetable has been moved up. I'm placing the security system into full lockdown. Clear and seal the room. We cannot risk anyone tampering with the control settings.
Speaking of going loud, the rest of this level is about to turn into pure chaos after we laser a few more circuits to disrupt the whole base's security systems. I think this is supposed to be this game's version of what we were doing in the PC version's last level with us destroying those satellites, but they slid it into this level to kind of kill two birds with one stone since we got that vehicle-based level instead. Oh yeah, and I forgot, since we didn't kill Rook in this version yet like we already did in the PC game,
The elite guards will hold the line. I'm going below to cut the power so he can't follow. But if Bond does reach the facility, I'll be sure to thank him for the makeover he gave me.
we'll be tackling his boss battle at the end of this level instead. But between us and him is his so-called elite guard, and honestly, yeah, they're pretty deadly. Even with this futuristic-looking burst-fire assault rifle and an underbarrel grenade launcher, I found myself having a particularly tough time getting through this. But after putting in some work, I did manage to get to the end of these corridors, where we finally get to take on Rook in this version of the game and put an end to Drake's right-hand man.
Pain only makes me stronger, Mr. Bond. You'll have to command that.
And that's not even the only boss battle in this mission, but we're getting there. Deeper into the facility, we find ourselves in what is, I would say, the weakest area of the game, which in Nightfire terms means it's still sick, but it's just repetitive and a little annoying. Roughly the next 8 to 10 minutes will be spent fighting through a series of large chambers, all of which look the same and house a variety of nuclear missiles. And in between every missile chamber are these connecting hallways that we have to toss a frag in to blow up a bunch of mines before continuing. I mean, honestly, like I said earlier, it's not bad or anything, and design-wise it's all great to look at. It just got a little repetitive after like the third missile chamber, and there are several more than even that. At the end of this though, we get rewarded with a sinister supervillain speech from Drake that is actually now one of my favorite Bond villain monologues of all time. I'm being serious, it's so good that I feel compelled to play it here.
The communists, socialists, and fascists were predestined to fail in their efforts at globalization. The answer is sublimely simple. A corporate takeover by Phoenix International on a worldwide scale. No more national boundaries, but continent-wide regions of agriculture, industry, energy production, and research. Quarreling governments are replaced with a single board of directors. Of course, our new order will be resisted. But we have the ultimate leverage. The nuclear missiles mounted in our island grottos and controlled from an unassailable command center. The U.S. Space Defense Platform. Unfortunately, our security has been temporarily breached. Therefore, I've advanced our launch schedule. All flight crews and combat units are to board their shuttles at once and prepare for liftoff. Operation Nightfire has begun.
Bro is a genuine megalomaniacal New World Order globalist corporatist supervillain and possibly the most underrated Bond villain in 007 history. At the end of this area, Bond tries to board a shuttle to chase Drake into space before Kiko gets one over on him, dropping him into the launch chamber where you will die if you don't get to safety on time. They were firing on all cylinders for this one, man. We don't get a direct boss battle against Kiko. Actually, she simply observes Bond from an observation room. But in her place are multiple of the ninja boss characters from the end of the Mayhew Estate level. Although I suspect these versions have been watered down since they seem just a bit easier to contend with in comparison to the one from that level. Once Bond deals with the ninjas, it's just a matter of getting into that last rocket.
Damn you, Bond.
Commencing countdown for final shuttle launch.
You know, we see Kiko about to leave Bond behind here, but somehow, even as a child, it shocked me how her character could be this stupid given she just did this to us. So of course we press the big red button.
face!
Meanwhile, back on the PC version, I have to admit that I really like the opening of our penultimate level here, starting us off on the island environment and letting us take out all of these guards from a distance. And again, the Q specs are far more useful here than they ever were on the PS2 version. Everything after this little bit, though, unfortunately descends into kind of a slog. And this alarm is so damn annoying. We get a grenade launcher, which is pretty cool, and even this minigun assault rifle, which looks like something straight out of Return to Castle Wolfenstein. And another thing I'll say is that the PC version makes noticeably more frequent use of the whole third-person environmental interaction gimmick than the console version did. I also really love how after taking this elevator down into the underground bunker, the game goes out of its way to show us that we're underwater all of the time. I mean, look, they've even got divers down there. The developers didn't have to do that, but they did, and that shows they were thinking about what the player would see when they came out of that elevator door. I just really love when you can tell how much thought developers put into their games. Oh yeah, and of course we get a train section. This one really felt like Half-Life. I mean, more so than usual. The way everything looks and moves is so gold-sourced that you could probably convince someone this was a real Half-Life mod if you showed them just a few seconds of this footage. After this, though, the mission kind of becomes insufferable. I mean, it just goes on and on for way too long.
Suite downstairs.
It's easily double the length of the console version of this mission. Actually, it might be more than double the length. And it's not that the environment is repetitive or anything, the level design is actually great. And everything does play well. I think I was just getting a little bit fatigued with the constant gunplay and not very much else to do in this version. Like, Drake's underground personal office room is genuinely one of the most inspired areas in the game. I know this is just some reused assets from the first level, but putting this underwater feels so quintessentially like a Bond villain. But what follows this is more underground base with a series of soldier barracks on repeat. I mean, we gotta be talking like 12 to 15 infantry barracks rooms, possibly more. The upside is that most of them feature lockers with padlocks we can burn off and get supplies from, but it just drags on too long. If you're dedicated though and check every single locker like me, at the end of the line you can actually find a locker belonging to someone with a big crush on Kiko, which is some really cool world building. And of course we get a slightly different version of Bond's encounter with Kiko, but it actually plays out surprisingly similar to the console version. For example, we have to hide from the rocket engines burning us to death, and also have the same kind of last stand area here in the engine test chamber. Oh, except there's somehow even more ninjas to deal with here. Kiko's fate remains the same, however. I'm gonna keep this one real with you. It's just a series of square, boxy rooms you have to kill your way through while looking for Kiko. We do get the minigun from the PC version, which is a cool feature, but otherwise, it's just kill rooms, really. But it does have a sabotage from terminals similar to the console version. I don't know, this GBA iteration just really started getting terrible by this point, and this whole level felt pretty phoned in. There's way too many enemies, too. Like, if I hadn't been cheating with unlimited health, then this would have been an absolute nightmare to slog through. Oh, but they did keep the ending where we once again have to hide in monitoring chambers while the rocket engines test fire and then fight a bunch of ninjas in between. Okay, whatever, let's wrap this up.
James, I'm still patched into Drake's comm system. I've intercepted enough radio chatter to learn that Drake's combat troops have overtaken the defense platform. Some of the original crew might still be alive, but I can't confirm that. I can tell you that Drake's deployed a laser defense net, which draws power from the platform's core. Rather enjoyed your company, James. Do be careful. Call out.
You're on a fool's errand, Mr. Bond. I've just locked the launch sequence. Nothing can stop Operation Nightfire. Not even my own death. That's a theory I mean to test.
So this is it, the finale of Nightfire, and it's both delightfully simple and stunningly beautiful. What you're seeing on screen right now is the whole level. All we need to do is navigate around this satellite platform and destroy the hinges of these missile launching assemblies with this handheld laser. All the while, more and more of Drake's soldiers come out of the interior to try to kill us. Now, if you're not quick enough, a missile can launch and end the mission, which makes sense. I mean, one missed missile means nuclear Armageddon somewhere on Earth. So you have to try to be fast and accurate to kill all of your assailants while taking out these weapon platforms. Once you finish off the last of the missiles, the massive laser overloads and blows up, releasing Drake out into space for us to take on one-on-one. But I mean, it's kind of the easiest boss battle across all of the games, to be honest. The PC version of this finale is a bit more involved, however, and manages to extend the finale beyond a single spectacle-centric set piece and into a complete level for players to take on. Rather than starting outside of the satellite, we're placed inside of a significantly larger station that we'll have the opportunity to fight our way through for a while. It's not zero gravity like the other version, but it is still low gravity, which is cool, and does allow you to make use of the jetpack mechanic from earlier in the game, a feature the console version distinctly lacked. Also, I'm pretty sure the sound effect is the Pizzac minigame sound in KOTOR. Despite the fact that this mission is longer than the console finale, it is still relatively short overall, easily half the length of any primary mission from either main iteration of the game. Most of it centers around this room where we have to disable these nukes one by one, powering them down by flipping a switch like Obi-Wan disabling the tractor beam in the Death Star. But once all 4 missiles are deactivated, we can press on into the final boss battle against Raphael Drake. Again.
In space, Mr. Bond, no one can hear you scream, except for me.
Now, I will give this version some real credit because unlike the PS2 version, this one is an actual bona fide boss battle. Drake can dart around the room similarly to Rook in our earlier boss fight against him about halfway through this game, and he's armed with the same laser we have, making it a pretty even fight. Except he calls in reinforcements a couple of times for us to take out. All in all, I actually enjoyed this battle, even more so than the one against Rook, because this time I could actually move around without falling into a fan, so it felt much more climactic. But ultimately we do end up killing him and then rushing to evacuate in an escape pod before the whole station self-destructs. No actual outside space combat in this one, unfortunately. But they did decide to reuse this cutscene from the console version though, strangely enough. I guess there was no reason to make individuals here, so they just shared the final cinematic across both iterations. Oh yeah, and the GBA version opted to go with the console version for its finale, and it plays about the same but heavily crushed like everything else in this iteration of the game.
Astronomers from around the globe are reporting unexpected meteor showers. Well done, 007.
Then I'm sure the world won't mind my taking a few days off. We'll let the autopilot be our designated driver.
And that's 007 Nightfire. As a Bond game, the console version easily stands among the best there is, no doubt about it. And the PC version does actually have a lot more to offer than I think people tend to give it credit for. Although I would probably reserve actually playing it mainly for big fans of early 2000s shooters or 007 aficionados. The console version is a must-play in general though, being one of the best games on offer across the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube catalogs. It's tight-knit and doesn't overstay its welcome while still delivering a dynamic and diverse FPS spy action experience with everything from cars, gadgets, guns, and set pieces to rival the best of them. The story even stands tall all on its own right, at least as far as Bond tales go, with a fun villain, great henchmen, a globe-trotting narrative taking the player on a journey to stop a plot for total world domination. It's just great. Nightfire is a great Bond game, of course, but it's also just a great video game all on its own merits, IP license or not. I just don't know if Bond himself is ever really given a proper chance to shine, but a part of that is just because it's a video game and not a movie. I'd still say as an experience that Nightfire is as good as most of the movies and honestly even better than a few of them too. But all of that, everything I've just talked about up to this point is all just about the single player. And there is one aspect of Nightfire that is still spoken about with great reverence even to this day that I haven't touched on yet. The multiplayer. As a kid, I spent a good amount of time messing around in Nightfire's multiplayer mode because it came with bot functionality. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was this game that made me lament that other games didn't also have bots for me to experience a simulacrum of their multiplayer, since we didn't have high-speed internet in my home that would handle multiplayer games until I was like 13. So the frustration of being Halo obsessed and only getting to play proper multiplayer 2 or 3 times a year when I could get friends together was real, and went on until about 2 weeks before Halo Reach came out when we upgraded our internet. The point is, I played this game's multiplayer against bots because I loved Nightfire, and most times when I would spin it up, I would end up playing a little bit of the single player and then a little bit of the multiplayer just to really enjoy the whole experience. Even though I'm pretty sure the closest I got to playing this game's multiplayer proper was a few times with my brother, but it was mainly against bots. The fire that is Nightfire's multiplayer is well known, and possibly the only multiplayer Bond game that gets near GoldenEye's level in terms of endearment. We've got a handful of solid maps and more than a few game modes. Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, I mean, all of the expected game modes are here, with a handful of Nightfire-specific modes too, like one where you're fighting over blueprints. Although with all of that said, I do think it's weaker than Agent Under Fire Nightfire's multiplayer in a few ways. All of the physics changes and alterations we could do in that game are noticeably absent this time around, and honestly, half of these maps are just really terrible. The maps in Agent Under Fire were all either great or at least okay, but some of the maps in this game are kind of awful. Particularly this one where we're trapped inside of a big missile silo where everyone either has to go up or down a level to find anyone, and it's just super annoying. The big map in the snow with the gondolas was my favorite as a kid though. I normally chose this one because I thought it was so cool to have a map with dynamic moving elements. It's also the biggest map in the game and is clearly taking some massive inspiration from Combat Evolved's Blood Gulch map. Still though, I love this map, but it's the only one I would really say that about. The characters though are an area where Nightfire outdoes all of its competition. If you manage to unlock everyone, then the array of character models to play is enormous. We've got so many classics here like Goldfinger, Scaramanga, Jaws, Oddjob, who does actually spawn with an instant kill throwable hat, which is fun, Xenia Onatop, and even a handful of other Bond girls like Wei Lin, Christmas Jones, and even Pussy Galore. It's all there, man, and it makes this game's multiplayer matches stand out so much visually speaking. Playing it now, though, would be little more than a novelty for a possible nostalgia-driven get-together, but still, appreciating what they were able to make here is part of what I do. This game was the whole package. Oh, and the PC version did have a multiplayer too, that still has an online community that plays it to this day, but in my opinion, it just feels like playing a watered-down Counter-Strike Source because, again, they're both on the same engine with very little, if any, changes to how they play. Nightfire on the PS2 and consoles in general has aged exceptionally and still feels great to play even all these years later. But even back in 2002 when this thing released, despite its observable success, I still don't know if it was recognized as much as it really should have been. There was a genuine shortage of good shooters on the PS2, and even the best of them had their issues, but Nightfire was offering up an experience that very few other titles could compare to at the time. In a way, I almost wonder if the Bond IP hurt this game, causing it to be seen as a quick license tie-in game rather than being taken seriously for the brilliant game that it actually is. By the early 2000s, licensed games had garnered a pretty sour reputation for themselves, and that reputation would only get worse as the years moved on. Some titles stood out, but more often than not, a game based on a film IP was going to feel like a rushed-out ripoff of a better game that already existed, malformed to resemble a movie. This is not that, by any stretch, however. Everything is made with the kind of love and care that even the best developers at the time would likely relate to, and of course, this shines through brighter than ever in the music. Most of the music in these Bond games has ranged from stellar to great, with none of it ever being anything less than good. That said, I was somewhat critical of the score for the N64 version of The World Is Not Enough, which coincidentally was the last Bond game done by this game's developer, Eurocom. So I gotta say, the comeback here is incredible. Nightfire's score was composed primarily by Jeff Timochuk and is easily the hardest hitting Bond video game score to date. We're talking massive brass orchestrations, heavy string sections, and some striking guitar parts, all woven together by some of the best synthesizer and electronic elements we've heard so far. I'm not just impressed by this game's score, I'm taken aback. And it is by no means shy in its heavy usage of the classic Bond themes, with references to a variety of iconic leitmotifs like variations on Live and Let Die, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and of course, the OG Bond theme. What more is there that I could even say that I haven't sounded like a broken record about throughout the video already? The fact that we haven't seen these Bond games getting remasters and re-releases is already a shame, but this game in particular deserves a proper PC port, and I would love to see this in my Steam library, I'll tell you that much. It already looks, feels, and sounds great, but even just playing it via emulation can give you something so smooth and crisp you could trick someone into thinking it was a remaster, just because of how well made it was to begin with. Even so, the current PC version of this game does fall pretty short of its console counterpart, and that fact alone makes me think there is an opportunity here for some developers to do something really special in bringing these old Bond games, this one included, back to the public consciousness, even if it is in a small way. The Gearbox PC version is already preserved and accounted for by a loving fanbase and can be easily acquired and played online without much issue at all. The console version, however, does require some tinkering to push it to its optimal state, and even when it is working well, there's some issues like how you probably notice some of the cutscenes having lines in them. I tried to rectify this in the emulator, but I didn't have much luck. The GBA version just kinda sucks, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Technically, it's very impressive, and I applaud what they were able to achieve with it on such limited hardware, but it's just very unfulfilling to play. The true Nightfire, however, remains one of the greatest, and I'll be honest, most underrated FPS games to ever release on 6th generation hardware, and I'll stand by that. Hey everyone, thanks so much for sticking this one out with me, and I hope you enjoyed my deep dive on 007 Nightfire. This was actually a seriously tumultuous one for me to get through for a variety of reasons, most of which had to do with some turmoil going on in my life and reckoning with the reality of some YouTuber burnout, which is a very real thing as it turns out. So I know it took a while to finish, and I deeply appreciate all of my viewers, patrons, and members for sticking this out with me while I got through the trenches and crossed the finish line on this one. I don't think I've ever gone a month without releasing a video in over 2 years, but it was bound to happen eventually. I'm happy to be what feels like back on track and on an upward trajectory, and I can't wait for the Bond games that lie ahead and all of the other exciting games waiting for me after that. Please make sure to hit that like button, notification bell, subscribe button, and of course, leave a comment to help me burst back through the algorithm. I appreciate you guys so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next video, but until then, that's all I've got for you.